Hari Om to Manya. Let us contemplate on Bhagavad Gita Shloka 2.59. Over to you, Manya.
Hari Om. Viṣhayā vinivartante nirāhārasya dehinaḥ rasa-varjaṁ raso pyasya param dṛiṣhṭvā nivartate. This is the word-to-word meaning of all the complete shloka. Viṣhayā means objects of senses. Vinivartante means to restrain. Nirāhārasya is practicing self-restraint. Dehinaḥ is for the embodied. Rasa-varjaṁ is cessation of taste, however, and asya is a person's. Param means the supreme. dṛiṣhṭvā means on realization, and nivartate means ceases to be. The meaning of this shloka is that aspirants may restrain the senses from their objects of enjoyment, but the taste for the senses or sense objects remains. However, even this taste ceases for those who realizes the supreme. So what this means is, when a person wants to reach God, especially rishis and yogis, though they restrain their senses from these objects of pleasure or sense, they still have that feeling or taste in them. And once they connect to the Lord, even this taste is destroyed or it ceases, and it's completely, they're completely surrendered to the Lord.
Hello.
Yes, Vijayji. I'm sorry. Next slide.
Yeah.
So there's one good example we can take. When someone gives up eating for some period of time, like in a fast, though the desire of the senses become feeble, it's still there. Similarly, when a person is sick, he might not have the desire to eat his favorite food like pizza or burger or anything similar, but he would love to eat something which is very easy to digest. But once again, when the sickness is gone, he again craves for those foods. So though people lose senses, though people lose the interest towards the objects of enjoyment, it is temporary, and it's like a seed inside the mind. And for some period, it kind of remains dormant. But as soon as the fast is terminated or the sickness goes away, the desires return. And it's like a plant or a sapling that grows from this seed once again. Could we go to the next slide, please? So what is the seed of desire? It is the intrinsic nature of the soul for the divine bliss of God, of whom it is a tiny fragment. Until it gets that divine bliss, the soul can never be contented, and the search for happiness will continue. For example, a drop of water inside a river. So this river is flowing towards the sea or the ocean. Though the drop may not know exactly where it is striving towards, it still wants to go or reach its goal, that it is a part of it, and that's the reason it's attracted towards the sea or the ocean. And once it gets in there, it becomes content, and the search for happiness or towards where it's striving, it ends there. So coming back to the sadhaks, they forcefully restrain their senses with their willpower and determination. But this restraint is temporary, and the best way they can, that they can make this permanent is by connecting to God. Through this forceful restraint, the internal flame of desire is still in them. And as soon as they get engaged in the devotion of God and experience the divine bliss that one experiences when they get merged with the higher consciousness, like how an individual soul gets connected to the super soul, that's when that's when the sadhaks experience that higher taste which they have been craving for many lifetimes. Next slide. So another example I would give is, let's take there's a little kid, and for his birthday we give him many chocolates, all the tiny chocolates. But then as soon as we give him one big chocolate, like in the next slide, we keep increasing the number of chocolates, and once we give him that, when someone gives him a big chocolate, he completely forgets about all those tiny chocolates that he had been gifted with from different people. And that's the same way, that's just another example of how these little joys we experience in life are. And as soon as we get connected to God, we forget all about those tiny little joys, and we lose interest towards them until we are connected with this divine, until we are experiencing this divine bliss that occurs when we get one with God. Next slide, Vijayji.
This is the next slide.
Okay, so this was just the example I was giving of how the drop in the river wants to go and merge with the sea, like a soul wanting to merge with the super soul or Krishna. And in the next slide, you'll see how, that this is how one feels when one is merged with the divine consciousness. And in the next slide. So here in the Taittiriya Upanishad, there is one verse. Taittiriya. Verse, sorry. Taittiriya. Okay. Rasa-varjaṁ labdhva nandi bhavati. What this means is, God is all bliss. When the soul attains God, it becomes satiated in bliss. So when one naturally develops dispassion towards the lower sensual pleasures like food or wealth or any other thing which the person was craving, when he wasn't yet attached to God, and this disattachment comes only through devotion that is firm and unshakable. So could we move to the next slide, Vijayji? Also, the Sri Ramakrishna Parahamsa quotes this beautifully. Devotion is the love for the highest, and the lowest shall fall away by itself. And thus, Bhagavad Gita does not teach a dry suppression of desires. Instead, it teaches the beautiful path of sublimation of desires by directing them towards God.
Excellent.
Hari Om.
Does anyone else have questions for Manya to begin with?
Uncle, in this shloka it says that slowly when we realize the higher feelings, then we lose our needs for all these temporary enjoyments. How is water joining a river and then connecting to the main sea like related to that?
Manya, you want to give your view?
Yes, Vijayji. So that was an example to show how well, just like how we are a part of Krishna, and for all these lifetimes we are searching for Krishna. Krishna is nothing but the divine bliss or happiness we feel, and we search for these happiness in temporary things like that we enjoy doing, like watching TV or eating something that we like to do. But then what our soul is actually searching for is Krishna. So whenever we reach these temporary things, it does not give us the same amount of happiness, and we are not content, and it's only temporary. Similarly, this drop of water, it goes through many phases. It goes through rivers and lakes and all of these, but it only stops when it reaches the sea or the ocean. It's only this part, and we could relate it in a way that it does not come back to the lake, or it does not retrace its path. But why I chose this example was to explain how when a part of something big is strives to get into that part and merge with its true self. That's the reason I gave this example.
So some of these examples, while understanding the truth, Aditi, for example, if you extrapolate this example, when the water is in the ocean, it evaporates and it once again falls as rain. So then, the example may look like it is not directly giving the analogy. So therefore, while you look at any analogy or any example, so the main idea is what you need to gather from that analogy, not extrapolation. For example, here, Manya's intention is to show that what is the flow of, say, river towards, where is it always flowing towards? When will the flow of the river end? And what is a river? River is made up of drops. And when will it end? It ends only when it finds the destination. What is the destination? Ocean. So in that way, when you realize the higher, lower naturally drops. Not that river is lower, but to indicate the idea. So therefore, this chocolate example is even better. Any other questions from your side, Aditi?
No, uncle, thank you.
Aditya, do you have any questions for Manya? So Manya, so then how do you said, by God realization, our lower desires drop. So what does it mean then, in terms of our day-to-day activities? Number one, so should we then stop our going to college, studying, doing our household work? What does then God realization mean for such a householder? That is the first question. Second question is, so how do you then go about, you've given the example that when somebody gets a bigger chocolate, lower chocolates drop, correct? But how does one realize God?
So the question is, how relevant is the shloka in today's time, and that do we stop going to school or college? So I'm not a master in Bhagavad Gita. I don't know much, but then I'll try my best to answer this question. So what I feel is this shloka doesn't mean that we stop going to school or college and that we stop studying or do the things that we feel are important today. So what we are going to college and studying is what is called as a duty to do it, and also that's the purpose of, we might feel that that's the purpose of our life, because if we want, then we will have to make the best use of being born as a human being in this lifetime. But it also means that that is something that we'll do in this lifetime, but what our soul is searching for is Krishna. So even while we are studying, we can, when we are doing our household chores for someone who is a grihasti, then he can always think of God and Krishna and keep Krishna in his heart and still do all of his kartavya or duty. And for someone who's a student, we can still do both of them simultaneously, like how we are reading the Bhagavad Gita and going to college. It enhances when we have realized God, or when we are trying to be in this path of bhakti, then it actually enhances our performance in the daily life, or all of the other things that we do.
So what do you do for someone, who doesn't know anything about Krishna? So say someone in Siberia may not have heard about Krishna. So then for him, then there is no escape, is it?
Then I think the best way to make him understand would be to help him understand these concepts without actually using the term Krishna, or something that would make him feel that he's diverting from, like, that would make him feel that he's doing wrong, or some other he might feel religious, though it's not. But then that's how the mindset of people, at least like the example you gave, that's how the mindset currently is. So without using it at the beginning, we can still help him realize, and later surely he would understand, and he would be able to he would be able to understand the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, and how that it's not a religious book, but then it's a way of life.
All right. Anita, you wanted to say something?
Yes, uncle. Uncle, from everything that I have learned, I don't think realizing God necessarily means one particular God in I don't think it means one particular God. Personally, I feel that it means realizing what you are capable of, and realizing things about the world, and that they're not going to be permanent, and things like that, not necessarily Krishna or any specific God like that. So then even people who are not from India and don't follow Hinduism can realize these truths.
Uncle, I think by learning the Bhagavad Gita, it's a way to realize yourself through learning all this and through God, basically.
Okay. And what does Aditya feel about that question?
Yeah, I agree with Anita.
Can you speak up so that others can
Yeah, I
hear you?
agree with Anita, because realizing God isn't connected to any culture. It's realizing, it's like application on a day-to-day life. It's like a quality, like so it's realizing that that everything, that you are part of everything, and everything is, so like everything is one, basically. So the religion doesn't really have to be connected to this. That's what I feel.
Okay. Manya, you want to say something else? Are you there, Manya? Okay. We'll have to give little time for Manya to join, because it's a question. So we need to understand what is God, who is God, and when we keep using the words such as Krishna, what is it that we mean by that? So that clarity will remove some of the notions. Yes, Manya is back.
Yes, Vijayji.
You
So
want to say something?
yeah, so just wanted to give another example. Like Anita, I guess, or Aditi, she just said she put it in a better way, the same thing I had in mind, that we need not use Krishna as a word exactly, or any god, or it can also be like anything that you believe in, maybe Jesus or something else. But the example that I wanted to give is, there is this book called Atomic Habits. So there is one line or principle that's stated in the book. It says, forget about goals and focus on the systems instead. And the explanation of this is like, the goal is something that you want. For example, for a basketball player, it is to win a championship, and for a student, it is to get this particular, like a particular number as the marks, maybe 90% or something. So what are systems? Systems, he says, is the processes that lead to those results, like studying or playing basketball or practicing chess. All of these are the systems. So he says that, is it possible to reach the goal without thinking about the goal, like without setting the goal and still following the processes or the system properly? Can we still reach the goal? Let's say the players, they keep practicing basketball, and then they have the perfect plan on how they can improve their strategies. And if they go to the competition, then they'll still win the competition, because now they become a really good basketball players, and that is what is necessary, and not just thinking or chanting their goals again and again. Plus, he says similarly, like how students can just study and improve their skills, or they can keep enhancing their knowledge. And if they still go and write the exam without really having set as a goal as this particular marks, they may still be able to achieve it. So basically, to conclude, he says that more than the goal and setting the goal, it's important to focus on the process or the system. And that's exactly what we have learned in many parts of the Bhagavad Gita, where they say the same thing of not really focusing more on the goal or the fruits, and enjoying the process, or devoting this action. So in this book, we can say that without even mentioning Bhagavad Gita or Krishna, they've managed to put across a beautiful principle from the Bhagavad Gita. Similarly, we could as well explain things from the Bhagavad Gita or concepts such as this in the shloka to many people from different countries who might not even heard of Krishna without having a mention of it.
Excellent. So therefore, oneness, when we talk about God, for most minds, they may conceptualize a certain form, depending upon what culture and what practice or what background they have in the home. So somebody may conceptualize God. So there's a beautiful joke. Okay, so somebody went to a big, king of buffaloes in the jungle and asked, "Hey, tell me how God is like." God said, "Buffalo, God definitely is a big buffalo. And he definitely has a much longer and a thicker horn, and is much taller and wider than I am, and is definitely having so much of strength that he can easily battle 10 buffaloes at the same time." So when we think in terms of forms, each one of us conceptualize God in the way we are. So a human being is the one who conceptualizes God as another human being, whereas an animal may conceptualize it. We don't know. So therefore, depending upon your own background, in your culture, let's say wearing sari is the right thing, then you conceptualize your God by making them wear sari. Whereas another culture may make them wear maybe a gown. But what is more important? What is common? So the outside is not common. The way they wear the dress is not common. The way they look is not common. So for example, though both of you are twins, Anita Aditi, you may not exactly the same. And if you look at this room itself, there are 5 of us, each one of us look different. But what is common? So for example, can each one of us feel kindness and care for each other? That is common. There is no argument about it. Or the love we feel towards, say, our mothers or our nation, or the respect that we feel towards each other, isn't that all common? Or for example, if let's say any one of us falls and hurts, the pain is common. So like that, there are things which are common, which are similar. Some things which are practice, depending upon the family you are born with and the culture that the family is practicing. So when we focus on the practices, there may be differences. But when we focus on the commonalities, it's the same. So you can see then what or who God is. Who do you call as God? Tell me. Someone who says, I'm going to punish you because you did something wrong. And he says, oh, you did something good. I'll give you a carrot. I'll give you a chocolate. Is that an idea of a God? Or would you call someone who is kind and loving and forgiving towards you? Who would you call as God?
Someone that's kind and loving.
Kind and loving and forgiving, isn't it? So these are the divine qualities. These are the God-like qualities. So when someone develops these God-like qualities and lives their life, see, for example, why do people go down to a great master, say somebody like Prabhuji, Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa? Why would they bow down? What is so special about them? Is it their nose, or the eyes, or the legs? What is special about them?
It's not
Their qualities and
Yeah, tell.
It's not the physical appearance, it's their personality.
It is the qualities that they exhibit. Yeah, Manya, you wanted to say something.
Yes, Vijay, almost the same thing. These godlike qualities that we associate with, like kindness, compassion, and all of such good qualities. When we see it in Prabhuji, in a large, like in this large quantity of good quality, that's when we feel like going down to him naturally.
Correct. So it is the same potential you and I and everyone else has. You have the potential to be God only. Meaning what? To fully bloom into awareness of your full capacity. Each one of you. So you are made, therefore, in the mold of God, in the sense that you can bring out all the godlike qualities. Kindness, care, love, compassion, awareness, creativity, laughter, all these are godlike qualities, isn't it? Why? Because when you are laughing, you are not worrying, you're not splitting, you're not putting somebody down. You know, when you're laughing, in your mind, you're completely accepting everything, isn't it? When you're creating something nice, be it a dance or a music or a picture, you are only expressing the joy of living. So none of that are detrimental. They're not destructive. So when you cultivate more and more of these qualities, these are the godlike qualities, the divine qualities. In Bhagavad Gita, later you will see one chapter called as Daiva Asura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga. The divine and the demonic qualities. Which one you pay attention to, that grows in your life. So, and what you grow towards is what you become. So, one another way of looking at this shloka is, when you focus on your godlike quality, you will naturally evolve into a beautiful and a wonderful being who has the joy of life, thrill of life. So, Krishna here therefore is saying, focus on the higher. Focus on the higher. When you focus on the higher in whatever endeavor you're doing, when you work towards it, naturally the lower will drop. Any more questions? Anita, Aditi, Manya?
No, uncle.
Manya, anything more you want to say?
No, Vijayji.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Manya. Very nicely presented and discussed. Aditya, are you ready?
Yeah.
Is 10 minutes enough for your presentation?
Yeah, I have only one example. What is the topmost one? The last one. No, the last one. Yeah, so my example for this shloka was like when a criminal, when we convict a criminal, they go to jail, right? So they're forcefully put there and they're forcefully under some conditions, and this doesn't really stop them from if they're let again into society, it doesn't stop them from doing crimes completely. So this is a metaphor for how as we still have even if we restrain ourselves from our senses, we still have the taste for senses, but when we
Taste for the desires.
taste for the desire,
Hmm.
so similarly, but if we teach them what's wrong and what is right and why it's wrong, that's when they really understand why they should do some stuff and shouldn't do some stuff, and understanding would stop it from, rather than forcefully stopping them. Similarly, how if we understand the higher God, the true self, that's when we get rid of these desires for the senses.
That doesn't mean that you need to drop the worldly activities.
Yeah.
So why would a mother cook in the home? For whose sake the mother cooks?
Family.
The family. For whose sake the Prime Minister of the country works?
The country.
So like that, you can then look at how to dedicate your actions for the benefit of the whole. So the larger your the circle of the care. See, for example, let's assume you know how to cook for yourself. Okay, so you know how to make whatever, some nice little dish for yourself. And today, let's say there are 10 people who come and say, can you cook for us? You may feel a little tension, isn't it? Oh, it's so difficult. But now imagine you are a cook who is always cooking in large functions. You've been cooking for 1,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. Now, if somebody comes and says 10 people are coming, is it ever a problem in your mind? Why?
Because we've already cooked for 1,000 people, so 10 people is nothing.
Yeah, Aditi, you wanted to say something.
Because we don't know how less you have to make.
No, is it a problem in your mind? Do you feel stressed cooking for 10 people? Let's say every day you've been cooking for 1,000 people. Today, if 10 people say they want to come to your home for dinner, will you feel stressed? Why?
Because you've been making for so many people, 10 people is...
Exactly. So see, when the circle of what you are working on is larger, then when you have to deal with a smaller circle, it's very easy. But if you focus on a smaller circle, okay, I will only learn how to cook for myself. It's a smaller circle. Then when some other situation of life comes, you feel very stressed. So in a similar way, see, all of you have so many subjects in school to learn. You have math, you have science, you have social, you have chemistry, you have biology, you have languages. However, when you also are learning about life itself through Bhagavad Gita, have you noticed how your other subjects, handling other subjects is becoming easier? Is it becoming easier? Yes or no?
A little.
A little. In what way is it helping?
Uncle, one main difference that I can see, I don't know if it's related to this or not, but earlier sometimes I used to kind of dread going to school, but now going to school is fun. So
Exactly. So, because you have to shift your way of looking at life. Because that is a fundamental thing, no? See, for example, driving is what I need to do safely on the road. But to drive, I need to know very clearly where my vision has to be. If I keep looking at the wheel, the steering wheel, I have a tendency to go and bump somebody. So I have to know where to look. Like that, Bhagavad Gita helps us to shift our viewpoint. So when the viewpoint is shifted, which is the fundamental, then what else you do on top of it naturally aligns. Does that make sense? So now back to Aditya, one question. So then does it mean that through this mechanism, crime can be reduced?
I'm not sure, I'm not educated enough on this, but it was just an example of like how, because like let's say a person goes to school and has like and goes to college and is taught from a very early age, right? Like from my assumptions, criminals aren't really like the environment they've grown up in is what makes them who they are. So that was my like what I was saying. So like if you educate them from a young age, the chances of them doing something wrong would reduce.
Do the others agree to what Aditya is saying? Manya, Anita, Aditi?
Yes, Vijayji.
yes, uncle.
Do you have any examples?
Uncle, there are cases where instead of, like in the example that he gave, instead of just locking them up and them serving their sentence, when they're given counseling, it's actually shown that the crimes have reduced from their part,
Excellent.
because they understand why not to do it and how else you can bring in that same feeling that you get instead of doing this.
Very good. Any other example? Does Manya have any example?
Yes, Vijayji. So, for the statement that Aditya made, that it's not that it's like the kind of culture or the environment that the person grew up, it's that environment or culture that made him commit the crime, or to become someone who is really great and to be kind towards people. So here I'd give an example that all of us are familiar with, and that is the story of the two parrots, how they've fallen and once their mother gives birth to the two parrots, and the two parrots fall down in two different paths, and one parrot is picked by he's picked by a priest or a purohit who's in a temple and always doing good to people, who's serving people, and there are shlokas and bhajans played in the temple. And the other one is where I think a terrorist.
It goes to a butcher's place and the butcher is constantly killing
Yeah.
and hurting.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure whether it's hunter or butcher. There's a variation, but both ways, there's always killing and use of abusive words. And after some time, when we observe both the parrots, one is very kind, speaking sweetly, welcoming people, and the other one is always abusing people, speaking rudely. Hey, I'll cut you. If we need an example, then that's a nice one. Secondly, about punishment, like how Anita or Aditi said, there may be various reasons behind punishments that we can have in mind. One is to make him suffer and regret doing it by giving him a very bad punishment, by having him in bars for the entire life and scrutinizing it. Or the other one would be to help him understand why doing that was bad and how it feels for the person on whom the crime is committed, how that would feel and why that should be avoided. Because there was this research that was conducted recently, where they observed the brain and different parts of the brain on various people who are serial killers, murderers, and some others who committed various heinous crimes. Then they saw that there was one part of the brain in the thalamus or the hippocampus, which was responsible for compassion and for understanding what the other person would feel, when we see a person suffer, we feel sad, and that part of the brain is responsible for that. When they observed the brain structure of these people, they saw that this part was very tiny or very little. It was very thin for such people who committed the crime. So how can that be corrected? Are some ways that people or the government should focus on? Because just by punishing, if the problems were to be sorted, then today the crime rates wouldn't be increasing. But then the crime rate should have been zero or very little, negligible, but it's just increasing. So definitely these ways are not working, and that's the reason we need to focus on other things.
Wonderful. Anita, you wanted to say something.
Uncle, I forgot.
Okay, no problem. All right. Excellent, excellent. So there is I just want to leave a reference. All of you can look up. There was a great scientist called Sir Jagadish Chandra Bose, J.C. Bose, who found out about life within plants also. That he proved that plants also are like people. They have feelings, they have emotions, and they respond to feelings and emotions. So very much like any other human being. So this great scientist, when he was growing up, in his house, his father was a jail superintendent, and his father had a feeling of how to reform, like exactly what has been written here, is not by punishing, but by love and compassion and kindness. So there is a wonderful story of, he had brought one convict after he got discharged from the prison. The convict was afraid of going back to society. So his father had brought him home, though his family members were very afraid. But J.C. Bose became very close to that convict. And that convict, no more a convict, of course, was very fond of working with plants. And J.C. Bose said, it is the love for the plants that this fellow showed is what inspired him to spend more and more time with the plants. So like that, a great scientist was made by an ordinary prisoner, because his father decided, I will give him shelter at home and I will treat him like another equal person. So love and compassion also transformed Angulimala. So like that, in the great master's life, you will find many, many such stories, even in your life. So it is this godlike quality, the higher, that lets the other lower naturally drop. So there is an incident in J.C. Bose's life when his family and that person, they were all traveling in a jungle and some people attacked. So this person, without caring for his life, he fought for them and he saved them. From that day, the other family members decided to start trusting him. So like that, there is a kind and natural God within every being. It is for you to invoke that within you and in the other. So what you invoke comes forward. So for example, when you call somebody, you stupid, silly fellow, you're invoking the stupid and silly in the other and stupid and the silly in you. When you invoke the Krishna in you and when you invoke the Krishna in the other, you're bringing the divine in you and divine in the other. So therefore, be very, very clear about what you are invoking within yourself every moment and what you're invoking from the others, because that is what will come in your life. All right. Anything else? Yes, Anita.
Uncle, I remembered what I wanted to say.
Yes, please.
Uncle Manya had said that some people commit crimes because of the environment that they grow up in.
Yeah.
Uncle, I just wanted to say that though a lot of people do that, it doesn't necessarily have to happen. And maybe this is unrelated, but we were talking about realizing God and all of that. So maybe that comes into play here. So if you realize God, then you'll realize that you are a nice being actually, and that you don't have to commit crimes in order to survive in your environment.
Exactly.
And despite your environment not being so nice, you can still continue being nice.
There's a beautiful Hindi movie called as Do Hanke Bara Haath. Okay, so if you guys get a chance, you will find it definitely in YouTube. It's an old black and white movie. Do Anke Bara Haath. 2 eyes and 12 hands. Okay, that's the movie's name. It's an excellent movie which revolves around the same idea. So please watch it, all of you. Wonderfully said, Anita. Anything else? Anybody? Okay. Then shall we end? Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you all. Thank you very much.